This is one of my favorite trades of 2019 so far because it's really predictable. What is going on, traders? Welcome back to the Traveling Trader. Happy Wednesday to you. Let us jump right into the market. I'll go over cryptocurrency first and do stocks later. I'm going to go over Bitcoin, Algo, the cryptocurrency market, and then I'll talk about oil and UWT, which is the ETF that I use to trade against crude oil. I'll talk about Lululemon stock, IBIO, which shot up over 50% today, and Shopify. So let's get right into it. Cryptocurrency market cap still teetering between, around 200 billion, sometimes a few billion under, sometimes a few over. It's really been quite a boring market, as crypto is known to do in the last year and a half or so. Bitcoin is currently hovering just shy of 7,500. I'll go over Bitcoin in a second and what swing trades I've been making, as well as long-term trades against Bitcoin. If you want access to the trade alerts, that link is in the description. You get access to our private Discord community where I send out the trade alerts, and you also get automatically signed up for the 0.03 Bitcoin drawing that I do at the beginning of every month. So sign up, link is in the description, and you also get stock trade alerts as well. So like I said, Bitcoin hovering around 7,500. There haven't been really many notables in the last week as far as top cryptos go. Wobi token up 10% in the last week. VeChain up 12% in the last week. Really, those are the only remarkable ones in the top cryptos. Looking at Bitcoin, this is the one that obviously everyone, or at least most of my audience, waits for. But looking at Bitcoin, you see us in this long descending channel that is, for now, surely confirmed, hitting support and resistance multiple times. So this is a valid pattern here. The death cross happened back, last week of October. The second death cross happened mid-November, and now we are struggling to get above the 21 EMA. That is very clear. This white line here is the 21 EMA, and we're struggling to get above that on the 1 day. This also coincides with the 0.236 fib level on the way up. You see the MACD climbing up slightly, the RSI climbing up slightly. The MACD is starting to curl upwards. So current short-term support is around 77.50, right? Which we actually wicked to today. There was a wick that took us to around that level, and that's resistance, and current support is at around between 68 and 6,900. That's where current support is. Now, this pattern isn't really one that I like to see, because it usually results in a bearish trend, at least in the short term, right? So this right here looks like a bear flag. So you have the pole and you have the flag drawn this way, and you typically see a break to the downside here, right? And this is not what we want to see, but we're still largely within this pattern. So unless you're swing trading or day trading, you're going to pay attention to these micro movements. Otherwise, in the grand scheme of things, we're still in this descending channel pattern until it is broken. And you can trade within that channel if you're adept at swing trading. And I do send out swing trade alerts in the Discord as well. So it's not just long-term alerts. But for those that are, long-term on Bitcoin, I would continue to dollar cost average at the major dips. We continue to make lower lows in this descending channel, right? But dollar cost averaging for the long term is your best bet. Now, if we do close above the 21 EMA, there is a chance that this bear flag gets invalidated, and we could see the next rally to at least the 0.5 fib level, which is around between 83 and 8,500. Again, these are the short-term movements. If we take a look at Bitcoin from a longer term, let me pull up a weekly chart. We can use Bitstamp for this one because it has a lot of data. But if you take a look at the weekly, we are also in this descending channel that you see here, right? And currently there is a potential, let me zoom in here. I don't know what this line is for, but there is a potential golden cross, mini golden cross between the 50 and the 100, which the 50 is this orange line on my chart. The 100 is the yellow line. So there's a potential golden cross on the 1 week. Now, I was also saying, if you follow me on, if you follow the trade alerts, I was saying that Bitcoin here could have possibly found a bottom back in the beginning of this year for the long term, obviously. And the reason I say that, if you look at Bitcoin's trend, when it finds support at the 200 weekly moving average, that usually signifies the low for that moment in time, right? So dips below the 21 weekly EMA, we see it rest at the 200 moving average, and once it pops above the 21 weekly EMA, then that signifies, or that indicates the long-term bullish rally. So obviously we're looking at the weekly. So if you look here, we pop below the 21 EMA, found support. It almost looks like the same pattern, really, but found support at the 200 weekly EMA, held support really nicely. And it seems like so long ago, but this is when we, crashed all the way down to below 3,200. And that was just December 2018, January of this year. So it's really not that long ago. Also, that golden cross that I was talking about, you see that here as well, right? In, April, May of 2016, when after we found support at the 200 weekly moving average and started climbing above, we hit that mini golden cross between the 50 and the 100 weekly MAs and continued that push upward. So, we could be continuing that same trend here. Obviously, if you're bullish on Bitcoin like I am long term, you will see this high eventually broken. Now, whether that is coming up on the halving, coming up towards the halving on 2020, or whether it's 2022, we're not really into time predictions. You see Bitcoin establishing new highs at various times. Between this high and this high was less than a year. Between this high and this high was about 4 years of difference, right? So it's really arbitrary, and your main concern should be buying the dips at buying the dips at identifiable support levels and trying to get the best price long term, not buying it at 19K and holding all the way down to 3,100, as a lot of people did in the crypto market. And at that time, a lot of traders were inexperienced, and their first foray into trading was the 2017 market high. Looking at Algo on the 4-hour, there was a great swing trade here that we made close to 13% on this before retracing a little less, because putting in the trailing stop and getting stopped out for profits, you're going to shave a little bit off of that 13%. But Algo had retraced all the way down to the 0.618 fib level here, cooling off from being majorly overbought on the 4-hour. So this is a pretty low risk opportunity, because you could set your stop really close to your entry. So it's a low risk, high reward opportunity. And my target for Algo was 4,000 sats and above. We hit and surpassed that target, and now we are out for profits. If Algo does retrace back down to the 0.618 fib, you could enter the same swing trade again, granted that how to set your stop limits, obviously. But it looks like the volume is also cooling off on Algo, so it might be done, at least for the short term. We tend to see that with certain cryptos, whether it was Theta earlier this year, or BitTorrent token, or Chainlink, where you do see these nice rallies in the short term, but after a while, once the volume cools off, interest also cools off, and the coin just stays stagnant, really. All right, looking at the traditional markets. If you look at the traditional markets, we jumped up about 0.2% all across the board. And I was saying this in the chat yesterday, but that when you're overextended, when you're establishing new market highs, the market is going to react to every little piece of news. And right now, the major piece of news is the US-China trade talks. And we keep teetering back and forth where, there will be some negative sentiment and we'll drop 300 points. And then it's almost like clockwork. The next day, there will be some positive news story, or some reporter will write a positive spin on the US-China trade talks, or Trump will tweet something positive, and then the Dow jumps 200, 300 points the next day. It's a very almost predictable cycle at this level. Now, this is not what you want to see in a market. It just means that the market is susceptible to any small piece of news. It's reactionary, which means that it is overextended, or it's a sign that it could be overextended. So until there is an actual conclusive decision or outcome on this, we'll continue to suffer the same teetering effect back and forth. And you can take advantage of it if you are a short-term trader. A few trade alerts that I'll go over. UWT was the big one. This right here is the ETF that I use in order to leverage my crude oil speculation, right? This is an ETF that's against crude oil. It's a 3x ETF, means it's a 3x leverage against crude oil prices. This is one of my favorite trades of 2019 so far because it's really predictable. All I've been doing, going all the way back to mid 2019, is once UWT hits this range, you can easily buy and then sell at the resistance levels. And then if we focus on a more granular level, going all the way back to October, support range is still the same, but it is hitting a lower resistance range, a lower high, right? Because the price of oil all across the board is generally getting cheaper. Now, there's an inverse to UWT called DWT, which is the exact opposite position, right? And when you think that oil prices are going to go down, this is kind of a way of shorting oil prices, but you're actually buying the exact inverse of UWT, which is a 3x ETF. So as you would expect, it has the same support and resistance ranges, just flipped as UWT. So you can continue to play the swings, buying UWT, selling it at resistance, buying DWT, selling it at resistance, etc. So it's really been one of the most optimal and easiest swing trades of 2019, honestly. Again, I send all these out in the trade alerts. WWE, we've made a killing after buying the dip when it crashed here after earnings. WWE, I'm kind of in it for the midterm. I wouldn't really call it long-term, where I'm planning on holding it for years, but we're currently up 16% on WWE. I do think there is a lot more upside, obviously barring a market crash. And something like this, I would want to set up a trailing stop to protect these juicy profits here. Shopify is one that we bought at the dip when it bounced off of the 200 moving average. I actually sold it when we were finding resistance at the 50 MA, so I kind of sold it prematurely. Still made money on it, but you can't have everything, can't have your cake and eat it too. But Shopify is making a push to all-time highs again, which it established back in the summer, August 2019, when we went above $400. It looks like Shopify is on its way. Really nice volume here that we see coming in on the volume bars, and the RSI is looking to be overextended once again. Very bullish MACD. You see the histogram here, and then also you see this double bottom pattern forming on Shopify. So this is a very bullish pattern, and one that I'm looking to exploit to at least the $400 range. If you're adept at options trading, you can even leverage this some more and potentially make a killing off of this push here to 400. It's your own money to risk. I'm just telling you what I would do. And also make sure that you know what the hell you're doing with options, because you can easily lose your shorts. When I first started out years and years ago, trust me, I've done it. It's one of the fastest ways to lose money in a market if you don't know what you're doing. There are a lot of factors in options besides, is the price up or down? You have the time decay, you have implied volatility. There's a lot more that goes into options trading than just, buying at the low and selling at the high. All right, let's look at Lululemon. Continues to crush it. This is one that I'm sadly not in, but I mean, if you look at Lululemon's trajectory from 2009, it was, around $2.20 in 2009, and has just been on a tear, and it is now up 100 times at $226. So don't let anybody fool you and tell you that you can't get crypto-like gains in the stock market, but it is up 100x since in 10 years, basically since 2009, and it looks like there's no stopping it. On something like this, I would advocate buying the major dip. So obviously, if you zoom in, you'll see something on Lululemon, you'll see that it does dip. If you zoom in close enough, obviously it does dip. The RSI does have to cool off, and those are really the opportune times to buy something. Shopify was actually like this, just before this major dip that we saw in the summer. Shopify was really on a tear. If you take a look at it since 2016, look at this. It just looks like a straight straight line up, right? So Lululemon is doing the exact same thing. So on stocks like this, yes, you can enter, but I would only enter, on the major dips. Now, here's the last one that I'll talk about, but also one of the more interesting ones, IBIO, up almost 60% today. This is a biotech stock that really, it's one of these cheap biotech stocks that tend to get crushed in recessions. And this stock right here at one point was trading at around $60, and it is now 30 cents. There is a chance that I think it got a delisting notice by the New York Stock Exchange that it would need to comply by October 2020. I'm not sure what the exact conditions of that warning was, but from a technical perspective, when you look at something like this, it's very risky because of the low price. Like, people tend to think that if something's low priced, it has more value to gain. That's really a fallacy. You've heard of gambler's fallacy. There is definitely a trader's fallacy, and that's one of them. Where something's low priced, it has a lot to gain. I mean, you're assuming that, because you're buying it at 30 cents, that it can eventually get to $60. And a stock like this may never see that type of growth again. You would have to examine it more in depth and take a look at what's going on in their balance sheet, what's going on in their business fundamentals. But it absolutely had zero volume until today. Like, the volume is absolutely dead until today's push. Now, would I jump into something like IBIO? I might. Obviously it's a managed risk. But the only time I'll jump into IBIO, just looking at this, is if it closes above the 50-day moving average. And I would look to sell at the next moving average as a swing trade. Because if you look at the 50 moving average, that's really been the Achilles heels of IBIO. And when it has jumped above, it saw a very quick rally that you would essentially have to take advantage of in a very expedient manner, right? Like, you have to execute your order quickly, your buy and sell orders quickly, and you can't hold something like this because, even though it's 30 cents, if the price falls, from 30 cents all the way down to, let's just say it falls from 30 cents to 23 cents, that's a 25% loss, right? So because you are dealing with something that is so low priced, each tick represents a high percentage. So I would entertain an entry into IBIO if we close above the 50-day MA. And again, I would look to take profits at the very next moving average. And I definitely wouldn't hold onto something like this long term because, like I said, you can bleed money if it drops just a few cents. That is the update for today. Go ahead and sign up if you want access to the trade alerts, crypto stock trade alerts. You get 0.03 Bitcoin. The beginning of every month, there's a drawing for 0.03 Bitcoin. Not everybody gets it, or else I'd be broke. But one lucky person will get 0.03 Bitcoin at the first of every month. It's a completely random drawing. So sign up if you want access to that. That's just a way to say, thank you and give back to the wonderful community that this trading group is. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. If you have a question or a comment, leave it in the comment section below. Let me know what stocks you want me to cover, what topics you want me to cover. I want to do more of that where I source the material straight from you guys, where you tell me what stocks and what topics you want me to cover. Hit that thumbs up if you got anything out of this video. Stay safe out there. Peace.